And now we are going to hear a reading from the book which has won the 2015 Australian Christian Book of the Year. Remember that this book has been awarded for originality and excellence and relevance to the Australian Christian context.
Generalizations are always risky in assessing the impact of padres on diggers. Yet the value of padres for boosting morale cannot be gainsaid. Two Australian officers put it this way in a seminal journal article on Army manpower published in 1980. The universal experience of generals from Xenophon to Montgomery, who claim that man's faith is important to him and thus the army, cannot be denied. Indeed, experience has led us to believe that there is an inner strength in all men connected with his belief in God, and the leader who disregards it is no better than a fool. As the accounts of many chaplains and soldiers have testified, chaplains have acted as a kind of sacred sapper, building bridges through their words and deeds to help thousands of soldiers at every level of the army to connect with the divine and the transcendent. One thing that can be said without qualification is that the Padres' ministry of presence in the field and on the home front has established a proud tradition of devoted service that has garnered deep gratitude and respect from diggers of all ranks and their families. Australian society's outwardly religious complexion may have changed significantly over the last 50 years, but as chaplains of all eras have testified, a deep and abiding respect for the Padre and his position in the army has not. That respect has not come without a cost. For over a century, more than 2,000 Padres have accompanied Australia's soldiers wherever they have gone. From the blood-drenched beaches of Gallipoli to night patrols in the remote mountainous desert regions of Afghanistan. While seeking to minimize and repair the tragic human cost of war, they have also borne it. Chaplains lost their lives during the First and Second World Wars, many while acting as stretcher bearers on the Somme, among the lighthouse in Palestine, or with diggers in the jungles of New Guinea. Others died while ministering to fellow prisoners in the hell of Japanese POW camps. Chaplains have been wounded in all conflicts in which Australia was involved during the last century, in some cases carrying the physical and psychological scars for the rest of their lives. Chaplains have also tended the wounded in aid posts and field hospitals overseas and in repatriation hospitals at home. They have sojourned with soldiers and their families through the joys and tragedies of daily life, helping to heal the human cost of soldiering and providing a listening ear, a waterproof shoulder, and wise counsel. In this way, Australian Army chaplains have exercised a profoundly incarnational ministry. The Padre has been described as God's flesh and blood representative within the unit. A digger might think such a description too ethereal, insist that the Padre is embedded in the unit. Or as one digger put it during the Vietnam War, one of us without a gun.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that wasn't hard to pick, was it? The 2015 Australian Christian Book of the Year Award is Captains of the Soul, A History of Australian Army Chaplains by Michael Gladwin and published by Big Sky Publishing. Michael, would you please join us on stage? Michael, this is what the judges had to say about Captains of the Soul. The letters and journals of both chaplains and soldiers animate this account of the work of chaplains in every theatre of war involving Australian troops. While the role of the chaplain has changed over time, the common task remains the ministry of God's word and the sacraments to soldiers, burying the dead and representing an alternative reality to the conflict, chaos, and suffering. Increasingly unfashionable in some spheres of society, chaplains continue to be valued in proportion to the proximity of battle. Gladwin does not flinch from portraying chaplains who behaved disgracefully, nor from facing up to the problem of fatalism amongst Australian troops. However, acts of heroism by the soldier without a gun abound and provide historian communicators with a treasury of inspiring homegrown stories. This is a history of national importance and an insight into the Australian character. Ladies and gentlemen, please applaud Michael Gladwin again.
Well, I'd like to begin by thanking Sparkly. And I have to say, it's a real honour and an encouragement to receive this award, and particularly because of the strength and the calibre of the other books that are here shortlisted tonight. And to be among those authors and that excellent body of work is a real honour. And I think it's a testament to the strength of Christian writing and authorship on the contemporary Australian Christian scene. It's encouraging to see that depth and that rigour in our relatively small part of the Christian world. I also want to thank my family and my wife Lara, who's here tonight, who has put up with the most, I think, in writing this book, especially with two young girls, one who came along during the writing of the book, and she made the most sacrifices to enable that to happen. I also want to thank, and I want to acknowledge the chaplains that I wrote about. And I should mention tonight that the principal chaplain, and really the driving force behind this whole book and this project, it wouldn't have happened if it were not for principal chaplain Jeff Webb, who is here on our table as well, who secured the funding, the permission from the Army to write this history of Army chaplaincy. So a lot is owed to Jeff for this book. Finally, I want to acknowledge the chaplains themselves, those 2,000 odd chaplains who've served soldiers, they've served the Army, but ultimately they've served God and the church in their work. And in this year where we think about the centenary of the Great War, and an enormous amount of ink is being spilt in looking at our experience of war, particularly the spirit of Anzac, what you might call the souls of the captains. I think any full-orbed understanding of our national story, of our experience of war, our experience of the past, but also our sense of who we are, or who we think we are, as the current television history puts it. I think to have a full-orbed understanding, it's necessary to have the religious and the spiritual dimensions of that story brought in to the main part of the narrative where it belongs. So while there's value in looking at the souls of the captains, the spirit of Anzac, I think it's also important to tell the story of the captains of the soul. Thank you very much.